It's great to be back at Inspire Ed. What I'm going to do today is basically talk about, and it is crystal gazing, but what I want to talk about is how schools will look in a post-COVID world. I know the last 6 months have been crazy and frustrating in equal measure for everyone who's involved in school education. But from the vantage point that we hold in partnering with over 800 schools across the country, and these are mostly affordable private schools, we can see how the situation has unfolded over the last 6 months, and that allows us to indulge in a bit of crystal gazing to see how it would be in the post-COVID world. Before I go into talking about the post-COVID world, I think it's important to just take a step back and see what has happened over the last 6 months. And when we do that, it's important to recognize what is really the role of a school. Now, in the pre-COVID era, we didn't have to really ask this question because going to school was so well ingrained in our psyche and in our habit, and it was part of growing up that after a child turned 3 or 4, you know, getting ready in the morning, putting the bag on, and either walking or going in a bus to your school was like a natural thing for most families and students. So we never took a step back to really ask ourselves, what is really the role of a school? Now, if you look at it, basically, what we have learned in the COVID world is that a school essentially performs three roles. The first one is assisted learning. The second one is peer group and social acclimatization. And the third one, which is really important, is daycare. Let me talk a little bit about each. Assisted learning is important to understand because the key word here is assisted. Now, learning can happen at three levels, right? You can be self-learning. You can actually go to a place where the teacher is not physically present. But the difference in a physical teacher being present right in front of you has a very different impact in how a child learns. And schools traditionally across the last few centuries have been providing assisted learning, which is very different from, let's say, what an app would provide, which is what I call self-learning. So assisted learning, which is mediated by a teacher, was a very important role that a school performs. But the other two are equally important, and we never paused to really see how important they were. But after the school shut down, we realized that the whole peer group and socialization aspect of school went missing. Because schools provide a very important learning ground for students to form their identity, form their relationships with peer group, figure out how to take care of bullying or handling impact. How do you form relationships? How do you take care of fights and battles and one-upmanship, and all of that is great practice for life. But all of that went missing when schools were locked down and learning had to shift online. The last bit, which is daycare, is actually a really important benefit for parents, if not for students. Because those 6-7 hours when the child is at school is a time when the mother or the father gets either for themselves or for their profession or for their housework. And when all schools were locked down and learning moved online, this went missing. So the COVID era actually gave us a chance to look at the unbundling of the role of a school into these three elements. And what really happened was that while in moving to online, a lot of schools were able to provide assisted learning. The peer group and social acclimatization factor went away, and the daycare benefit went away. And now you can understand why a lot of parents do not see as much value in online school, because for them, 2 out of the 3 benefits have gone. Why students are not as engaged in online schooling? Because for them, 1 of the 2 benefits are only what's remaining. So therefore, it also tells us that, after COVID, schools are going to bounce back. A lot of people I've heard are talking about, prematurely about the demise of schooling as we know it. But my sense is if you understand these 3 key roles that a school plays, schools are going to bounce back. The form in which they bounce back would be different, and that's going to be the second part of my talk. But it's really important to understand the key role that a school plays for us to both reassure ourselves and recommit ourselves to the essential role that a school plays in a child's development and learning. And that's not going away. So one thing which we should take away is that while there has been a lockdown, there has been a suspension of physical schools, schools have been forced to move online, but the moment the situation comes back to normal, students will start going to school because parents want the daycare facility, students want the peer group and social acclimatization, and both want the assisted learning. So that's the first part of understanding why the role of school is so important, and therefore why will they bounce back post-COVID. The second aspect that we want to understand is India historically over the last 60 years has made tremendous gains on access to schooling. And the way to get access was to basically build a school at a 3 to 1 kilometer radius of any habitation. With COVID, what happened was that access to schooling went away. And the other aspect which we need to remember is that traditionally, while India has been really good in providing access, but access to quality is another different matter. As you know, you move away from a metro, the quality of schooling precipitously drops. And as you get closer to a metro, it increases. Similarly, as the school fee increases, you can see quality increasing. So traditionally, the two barriers to quality schooling have been geography, whether you are proximal to a metro or not, and your economic situation, whether you are able to afford a high fee school or not. What happened with COVID was that the traditional barriers of schooling almost were superseded by new barriers. And it's important to understand what these barriers are, because when schools reopen, we'll have to address these barriers. Now, what are these barriers? If you think about it, the new barrier is the access to device and data. And in India, there's a clear demarcation between haves and have-nots, where there are a huge group of students, especially students who go to government schools and low-fee schools, who do not have access to a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet, and who don't have access to data to be able to access online learning. So therefore, we've had to find different ways of reaching them. The other access, which actually is surprising, is that the parental acceptance of online schooling has not been homogeneous. There are parents who have embraced online schooling, but there are parents who have not embraced online schooling and they are opposed to it. The reasons for it might be manifold, and some of it is, why online schooling is not able to perform the three roles I mentioned. But it's also because some parents have seen that because they're not seeing enough value in online schooling, and they don't want to pay the fees, and therefore they don't want to accept online schooling. So if you think about it, out of the 4 quadrants in this 2x2 matrix, the bottom half is essentially students who don't have access to online learning because of their economic situation, and these are students who go to government and low-fee schools. But the left quadrant, the left top quadrant, are parents who have access, but they don't have the willingness or the desire to give online schooling. So these has created new barriers on top of the traditional barriers in providing access to quality schooling for students. In summary, what has happened during COVID is there is learning loss among millions of students because of these new barriers to access. The other thing which has interestingly happened is that parents now have a peek into what happens in the classroom. Traditionally, parents would leave the student at the school gate and have no idea what happens in the classroom. But now that the classroom has come into students' homes, parents have a sense of what really happens in the classroom, and that has led to a higher scrutiny on teachers. And the third thing which has really happened is that schools have experienced the unbundling of their benefits. And schools have realized that if they are offering benefits of assisted learning along with some amount of peer group and social acclimatization, there is higher acceptance amongst parents. So those schools who have moved to a combination of synchronous and asynchronous classes, who are doing social emotional learning for their students, who are doing small group instruction apart from curriculum delivery, they have seen better acceptance because the 2 benefits that I mentioned earlier out of the 3 are still being delivered. But those who have just gone to Zoom and Hangouts and delivering synchronous classes have found lower acceptance. This is a great point for us to now start thinking about, if this is what has happened during COVID, how would schools look in the post-COVID world? It's always hazardous to make predictions, but I'm going to stick my neck out and make 3 predictions of what will happen in schools in the post-COVID world. The first big trend that we'll see is learning will become or will need to become more and more personalized versus standard. And why do I say that? I think there are two inexorable movements happening. One is because there are millions of students who've been out of school for the last 6 months and have experienced learning loss. You cannot bring them back into homogeneous classes because different students have experienced different different levels of learning loss. So you'll have to assess where their starting point is, remediate them in a personalized manner, and then get them to grade level before we can start delivering our standard curriculum. So that is one reason why personalization is going to be important in government schools, in low-fee schools, in affordable schools. The second thing is that COVID has actually accelerated massively the density and the permeation of technology in our lives. And what that has meant is a lot of parents have ended up experimenting beyond schools. And they can see that, when there is a solution which is customized or personalized to their child's need, it works much more effectively. So when they go back to the 1:40 mass education model of schools, they're going to expect similar things. And this might start in high fee or international schools, but it's very quickly going to trickle down into affordable schools and low fee schools. So therefore, schools will have to ensure that they are not only personalizing the education for children depending on their starting point because of the learning loss, going forward also, how are they able to create personalized learning paths for their students? Because ultimately, we've got to move away from this 1:40 mass education model of schools, which has been perpetuated. And COVID has given us a great opportunity to move away and get to the really high standard of every child basically being able to achieve their true potential through personalized learning. So that's one trend I definitely see happening in schools in the post-COVID world. The second one that I see is learning is going to become a lot more connected versus being in silos. And there are two dimensions of these connectedness. One dimension is all stakeholders coming together to really help the child really learn. What has happened during COVID is that parent has started becoming more involved in their children's learning because they've got a ringside view now. So any solution which basically involves the parent and engages the parent, whether actively or passively, whether actively in teaching or just monitoring what is happening in their child's life, are going to be more and more prevalent. So one dimension is stakeholders, all stakeholders coming together versus the traditional school where what used to happen in the school was left to the principal and teachers, and then the parent had to figure out through once in a year or twice in a year PTM on what was really happening with their child. And then the other dimension of connectedness is location. When schools reopen, it's not going to be suddenly the tap will open and everybody will start coming to schools. It's going to be gradual and it's going to be hybrid. So on some days, I might be studying at home. On other days, I might be coming to school because my class is split for meeting social distancing norms. It might happen that in a week, suddenly my school is under lockdown because there has been an increase in cases. So in order to prepare for any of these situations, learning has to be connected between at home and at school. And this is really important to understand that if we don't build solutions for this connected learning, there is going to be continuous learning loss because the solutions that we're currently using, whether it is a Zoom or a Hangout, don't really help us in building these connections. So schools will have to embrace solutions which provide connectedness between stakeholders and between locations of at home and at school. So that's the second trend I definitely see happening in terms of schools becoming more connected versus the siloed existence that we've gotten used to over the last 70, 80 years. The third thing, which I think is the really most important one, which will actually power the first two, is that all learning and education here on is going to reside at the intersection of technology and curriculum. So far, schools, teachers, even curriculum providers have escaped the density of technology that has pervaded all other aspects of our life. If I look at communication, if I look at media, if I look at banking, if I look at travel, any other aspect of our life, technology is deeply pervasive. Somehow schools and education has been able to ward it off so far, but no longer. I see that for personalization, connectedness, and quality, which are the three things that schools will have to deliver, for these to happen, now we no longer can afford to just rely on publishers, traditional curriculum providers, books. It has to be at the intersection of technology and curriculum so that learning can become multimodal. A child can learn through a combination of audio, visual, and kinesthetic activities. So learning has to become multimodal. The other thing which will need to happen is that for learning to become personalized, technology has to be integrated with curriculum. So the future of the educator and the future of education and the future of schools is more and more going to be at the intersection of technology and curriculum, not just the traditional ways of using a set of publishers and books and teaching in the traditional way, because that will lead to rote learning, to the 1:40 mass model. These are the three predictions, and I know there would be multiple other implications of these three predictions. My sense is, as schools, as educators, as teachers, as parents, as students, if we can start preparing ourselves for a world which is where learning is far more personalized than we've been used to, learning is a lot more connected than what we've been used to, and all learning happens at the intersection of technology and curriculum, we will actually create opportunities and learning pathways for our students which help each and every child achieve their true potential. I know some of this might look too far out, but my sense is in the next 3 to 6 months, as we get back into schools opening up, as we get into a world where a vaccine has been developed, as we start welcoming students back to schools, you will see some of these three predictions come true in one form or the other. So I think we should start preparing, and if it is overwhelming in the meanwhile, stay calm and keep learning. Thank you. I'm now going to hand it over to Ullas. Ullas has an exciting panel coming up where he has a set of educators, school owners, and school leaders to talk about how schools would be in the post-COVID world and what are some of the challenges and opportunities they see in this new world. So over to you, Ullas.
Thanks, Sumeet. Welcome, everyone. Really excited to be here. So a quick introduction. So my name is Ullas. I currently lead the academic excellence team at Lead School. Prior to this, I have been a Teach for India fellow myself in 2011, and I have been working in the education sector since then. So today I'm very excited to have three people join us, accomplished educators in their own right. We have Mr. Raja Tangam. Sir, if you can please turn on your camera. We have Mrs. Shwetangana, and we have Riku, who and all three are accomplished in their own way. And the way we've sort of brought the panel today together is for us to give all of you a flavor of what education is currently looking in the faraway trenches of India. So both Shwetangana ma'am and Raja sir work in schools which are in tier 2 cities. Introducing Mr. Raja. So Mr. Raja is the director of Tangam Mount Letra Z School in Salem. He's been in the education field for a really long time, trained thousands of teachers and educators, and he's also he's an influential figure in the Tamil Nadu private education school space. So we are very lucky to have him today, and he will be talking to us about the perspective of parents and school owners of what they think the future is going to look like. We also have Mrs. Shwetangana. Mrs. Shwetangana is a celebrated educator herself. So she's based in Moradabad, UP, where she is the principal of Wilsonia's Scholars Home. She has been in the education space for many years now, more than 20 plus years of experience in having taught in ICSE and CBSE schools. She is a certified career counselor from UCLA. And most importantly, we can get to hear a lot more of her through her video blogs that she has started. So I would recommend all of you to, Google Mrs. Shwetangana and watch her blog so that she can reach many more educators. We also have Riku. Riku is the Chief Product and Learning Officer at Lead School. He's a teacher is how he wants to call himself. And he's been in the education space for a long time, has had more than 10 plus years of experience in strategy and in management. Prior to joining Lead, he was one of the core members of Byju's, and he was leading the K12, K10, K12 segment at Byju's. So very excited to have the three of you here. And what I'm looking for is for you all to bring in various perspectives on what is happening in the world around you today, in Tier 2 India and beyond. So I want to first start with Raja sir. Sir, a quick question. So, well, while you are interacting with parents, the one thing that we've heard is parents have lost jobs, there has been a loss of income, etc. And, as school management, you've had challenges with fee collections and a whole bunch of other things. So when you see the schools opening and reopening, what do you see as some of the challenges that you might face?
Yeah, good afternoon to all panel members, educators, parents, and viewers. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the lead team for giving me this opportunity. As Ullas sir was saying, today the entire world is in a pandemic situation where financially everyone is affected. There is a lot of pay cuts, there is a loss of jobs, business is not happening the way, and we understand our parents are not able to pay. But still, we have spoken to all our parents personally. We have sent them, communicated them, and today a lot of people are coming up and supporting the school. We are happy to say around 80% of the parents have paid the fees, first term fees, and they are 80 to 90% of the parents are children, students are watching the online classes.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
Sir, and when you see the schools reopening, whenever that happens, what are the challenges that you see you will foresee?
So the standard operating procedures suggested by the government, I don't think that will be possible for any school to make the children, teachers, and staffs to maintain that standard operating procedure, maintain physical or social distancing inside the school bus or inside the campus, which is highly
Mhm.
impossible. It can't happen. Humans are
Mhm.
not made for that. Right? We can't
Sure.
train them. We can't train them, especially children at grade 1, 2, 3. Uh, are
Mhm.
not. We can't even make them understand what physical distancing and social distancing is. It will be a very challenging
Sure.
to maintain the standard operating procedures.
Sure.
Post COVID, when the school reopens, I strongly believe parents will come forward to pay fees. Although parents will not send the children immediately. Slowly, this will they'll start coming, and they slowly they'll be able to pay the fees, and things should be normal.
Sure. Sure. Thank you, sir. And thanks for bringing the focus
And
back onto children. So,
one more thing I like to add on here is this:
yes, sir.
parents, teachers, and students have very swiftly adapted the online platform. Now,
Mm-hmm.
from my understanding, this is going to be there forever. Today, even martial arts are taught, music classes are taught, chess classes are online classes. If a child
Right.
wants to learn a Germany or French or Japanese language, now it is possible very easily, and they are all adapted to that culture.
Right.
So the only thing, the social and emotional developments, the children are missing out without coming to the school, which will come back.
Mm-hmm.
The celebrations, the
Great.
sports, and other things which children are missing it.
So thanks for bringing the focus back on students and what will happen in the school, and that's where Shwetangana ma'am will come in. Ma'am, as a principal and leading your team of teachers, how do you foresee, or what are the challenges that you foresee when schools will reopen?
Okay, thank you so much, Ullas sir. Good afternoon to all the panelists here and to Sumit and to the TCHED team also, who's invited us all here as part of LEAD. It's wonderful to be here and a very, very apt situation we are discussing and a problem. I wouldn't call it problem, but a challenge that is ahead of us. And I'd like to say that,
Right.
the first thing that comes to my mind when I talk as a principal or as a teacher is that during these past months of the lockdown, of staying away from school, what even Sumit brought out as his second factor of the schooling, that is the peer and social interaction, that is going to be a challenge because see, children are going to come back to us with a lot of psychological issues. It could be because a child has seen at home a parent losing a job. A child is and at times children are observing all these things, and as you mentioned, we all being from tier 2 cities, here the parents are not that aware that we should discuss this with children. So at times the child is just a
Hmm.
silent observer and has no idea as to how to process it in his or her mind. So there are going to be a lot of those psychological issues with which children will come back to class, if they come back to class. That's a very big question also. And the other thing is going to be that and every level is going to be different. Pre-primary teachers will have to deal with children who have these issues. They have been told at home that stay away, wear a mask, social distancing, and here they see a friend after 6 months, and all they really feel like doing is going and probably hugging that friend. So those are the big challenges that teachers will have to face by making the children understand what is a new normal, what is the new comfort
Right.
level, where you have to have that distance and where you can come close, how we have to ensure that I keep my socializing skills, I keep my peer bonding, but maintain that distance. And at every level it will going to be different. A K10 K12 child is going to be able to understand and comprehend, but a pre-primary child is not going to be able to comprehend. So as teachers, our big first challenge I feel is going to be to make the children feel comfortable about coming home. Parents need to be made comfortable as
Right.
well. There, of course, like what sir said just now, Raja sir said about following the SOPs and things like that, that is probably what is going to make the parents comfortable. But inside the classroom,
Hmm.
getting the children to feel comfortable is going to be the first challenge. Secondly,
Right.
schooling is something which is beyond just studying. It is sports, it is music, it is having competitions, having celebrations, and those things have come to a standstill. So how to slowly be able to and gradually adapt and adopt to those is going to be the next step that the teachers will have to take, because we have to get that back. We can't just simply say that now in the post
Right.
COVID world this is not going to happen. We have to do that because as human beings we need interaction, and we need the next generation to have social skills. They have to have the ability to interact with other people, otherwise it's going to be a very you know uh,
Right.
unforeseeable sort of a future human world otherwise.
Yeah.
Now, but for all of this, the last thing that I would say as a principal or as a person in the management, that the challenge that we will have is, there comes the most important thing, and that is going to be the quality of our teachers. The teachers will need to be now trained for something which is different. Now it is not just going to be a blackboard teaching. They will have to be able
Hmm.
to, they will have to be psychologists at some point. They will have to be good organizers at one point.
Right.
They will have to be creative enough to be able to make the children still have a competition without having any kind of too much of closeness. And they will still be scrutinized by the parents, because like what was discussed also earlier, that now the teacher has come under a lot of scrutiny by the parents. Now the parent knows exactly what's going on. So a teacher accomplishments, the teacher quality will also be another challenge. But as far as I'm concerned, the most
Great.
important is getting the children back into an understanding of the new normal. That is what we will have to work at.
Thank you, ma'am. Riku, that sort of, is down your alley, right? So as somebody who is creating curriculum and, technology products, how do you foresee this challenge, and how do you think we will solve this challenge of providing support to teachers, parents, as well as to students?
Yeah, yeah, true. So Ullas, thanks for the question. So when I was listening to Sumit and to both sir and ma'am, what was very interesting for me is the fact that it won't be a sudden reopening, right? It'll be a phase reopening. There'll be a significant time we have to go through in which we have to juggle options. There'll be many questions to answer. And throughout that period,
Yeah.
it'll be likely at least a 1 year long reopening period. And what is interesting for me from a creation perspective is that schools will be getting a lot more used to technology in that period, because they'll be forced to use technology for quite a period of time, right? Invest in technology also, because it might not be possible to use the free tools for such a long period of time, because they're not really designed for this purpose. They will not allow you to track things effectively. They will not allow you to manage both online and offline effectively, etc., like using Zoom, WhatsApp, and all those things. So I foresee schools starting to move towards tools specifically designed for this purpose, and realizing and investing in those tools, because the existing tools have no real connection to schools and classrooms. They're never meant for that. So that is one interesting thing I foresee happening. And on the other hand, when the pandemic struck, the way the schools stepped up and used the tools available and ensured that the students do not stop learning, that has been a heroic effort. I think it is comparable to what the doctors have been doing in this country, both the teachers and doctors, protecting the future and the present, right? So standing in admiration of that, and glad that we are playing a small part in helping us teachers do that.
Great. Riku, on that front, right, we have a lot of, educators, people who are interested in curriculum, teachers, a lot of them even just interested in education, right? So as people who are interested in education, what do you see are some of the skills, or, where do you see they having to learn, and what are these skills that they'll have to pick up to be effective in the new world?
Right. So from a school's perspective, it is about technology adoption to a large extent, and also at the same time, not forgetting the softer aspects which ma'am talked about, which is, how do you ensure, for example, arts, right? Music and dance. These are important things that students pick up in school, and some of them become brilliant performers because of their initial attachment and the rewards that they receive in school. So how do you promote these things in a technology-enabled world we haven't even thought of? So people who are producing has to think about those aspects, and thinking cross-connectively in that manner would be an important skill. But more from a school and from a teacher perspective, I think moving towards being able to deliver effectively in an online scenario, right, where students are sometimes coming to class, sometimes not coming to class, some students not at all coming to class, figuring out techniques and methods and systems to reach out to them on a regular manner, because you don't have the classroom interaction anymore. So figuring out other ways of communication, having a regular check-in with the student, these are important things you have to pick up. So teachers will require to be a lot more connected to both students and teachers, right, and parents. So that will definitely be important as well. And also, presentation skills beyond physical class is really significant now. So if you see the higher really, really important. So I think that will now percolate across school, even to a lower segment. That will be very important.
So, Riku, what you're telling me is that, we've seen the world where EdTech was meant to be more of a B2C type of a system. But what you're telling me now is that EdTech will now happen in schools, and that's where the innovation is going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. So like Sumit was telling earlier, the schools have three purposes, right? So one is that, they have to be a place where assisted learning happens, and assisted learning is so key there. Because self-learning, not every student can do. Out of 100 students, there may be 20 students who might be self-learners, who can indulge by themselves and learn it if you hook them in the right way. But all students will not. They require the personality of a teacher, the passion of a teacher to take them through it. And also the concern of a teacher. When a student falls behind, the teacher does that, right? That is assisted learning part. That is very, very key. Right. And the competition. Students are competing with me to prove to my peers, all those aspects, which is the peer-to-peer aspect comes in as well. And finally, the daycare center. I think ma'am brought up an interesting point built on Sumit, that daycare is not just for parents, it's also for the students. The students are now protected from the rigors of home, the problems of home. The school becomes a safe space for them where they don't have to worry about adult problems. They can live in their own, childlike world where problems don't exist, only their competition and their education happens. And because of that, schools are definitely not going anywhere, right? Now, one important thing I want to just bring out here is that as technology comes more into schools, as schools invest in technology, the way schools use technology is definitely going to change. And that means that early leaders, right, the schools which adopt this earlier can become super schools and become super teachers, because they will now have methods of reaching out to students across the country, right? And students might then subscribe to the schools for their after school learning instead of going to a local tuition. And these schools will build that scale and become true super schools. I think that could be a trend that might develop. And schools is where that innovation is going to really happen. So until now, it has been in smartphones, right? When you talk about edtech, we have been talking about smartphones or apps. But in the post-COVID world, that technology will directly go into the classroom, and students don't need to just be on an app. They'll have to have the technology in the classroom, and true innovation which is going to happen in schools. So I think that is something to really look forward to. And, again, a privilege to be working in that, intersection where we'll be contributing to that future.
Thanks, Riku. Thanks for bringing that up. I think just this concept of a super school, right, is really fascinating for me, because we are forgetting our geographical and physical constructs and getting to a space where children across the country will have access to the best possible education. And I think as educators, it is important that we migrate to these centers of excellence where things are happening, learn from there, and then contribute more and more to the have-nots of the world at this point in time. So on that note, thank you so much, everyone. It was fascinating to hear from the three of you and Sumit. Thank you, and really looking forward to schools reopening and all of us being in schools.